We have a very special guest in studio today. He is with Faster Funds Lending and STL Estate Solutions. Casey Samuels, welcome to the show.
Welcome, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to know you here.
Same here.
Obviously, we just chatted a little bit before the show. But for the people out there that don't know you, Casey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So as Faster Funds Lending, I'm the relationship manager. So we have right now about $24 million out on the street with real estate investors here in St. Louis. So investors who are doing fix and flips or rentals. So we loan to those investors here in town. So that's my primary role is the relationship manager. My job is to develop relationships with folks. So that's nice and easy. And I'm a real estate investor myself. So fix and flip a few homes per year. I have 9 rental doors. So getting to do those things, on the side as well. It's just all around real estate investing. That's a lot of fun for me. So that's kind of a general rule. And then I don't know if you guys have ever been to Buyers Club before. So we have the largest real estate investor meetup in the greater St. Louis area. We have really in between 230, 250 people in the room every third Thursday of the month. And I have the awesome responsibility of co-hosting that. So it's a fun time. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I've heard about it. I've never made it to one.
You should come out.
I need to. I'm an investor as well. I need to. Matt's been twisting my arm to trying to get me to go to him for years, and I need to just show up. Just a little bit of a hike for me.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a hike for most people.
It's out in O'Fallon, right?
Yeah.
I need to make it out one of these days.
I actually think I've been to one before. Did you guys have it at Brass Rail one? Or not Brass Rail? Oh, what's the place? There's a place out there.
We've had like pre-parties at Brass Rail. Yeah. It's gone through a few iterations. Brian Schroeder, he started this years ago over in St. Charles. And then it was in like just a meeting room in St. Charles. And then it was under I called it the Big Top Tent over in Newtown. And then, at Water's Edge, which is like the St. Peter's golf course kind of clubhouse. And then finally out at our building, 830 Waterbury. There's definitely been some pre-parties out at Brass Rail. Yeah. Awesome. People pre-gaming. So,
yeah.
And so, how did you get into this? Like, how did this come about? Were you always like? I guess just how did you get into it?
Yeah. So this goes way back. So I'm from North County, Hazelwood. I moved out to Arizona when I was 19. Originally went out there to go to Motorcycle Mechanics Institute. About halfway through, decided that that's not what I wanted to do. A friend of mine, we moved out there together. We lived separately, but his uncle was a realtor. And he was like, hey, I recognize that you'd probably be pretty good at this. Why don't you get your real estate license and, you can start selling houses. So this was 2006 in Phoenix, Arizona, which for anybody listening, it was like shooting fish in a barrel, right? It was a super hot market. Well, it fell out from underneath itself pretty quickly. But also at the same time, super bizarre set of circumstances. My ex-father-in-law owned a production company and he said, hey, we're bringing on a new project. Will you shoot video, edit video, all that stuff? And I was like, yeah, sure. Who's the company? It was like, it's a company called Rich Dad. And I was like, Rich Dad is in like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he was like, yeah. So for about a year and a half, I actually shot most of the videos, his insider's content for Robert Kiyosaki.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude.
So I really like with Robert, it was super cool, but it was super high profile. Like Robert, 3-piece suits, Lamborghinis, house, in the central area, just worth millions. And from a kid from North County who like grew up without, pennies to rub together, it was so far beyond my comprehension. I was just like, real estate investing is great for people who have a ton of money, right? But it was super cool to get to cut my teeth, listening to Robert and talk about that. So when the real estate market fell out from underneath itself, had a buddy who worked at Charles Schwab. He was like, hey, I can get you an interview. Again, I'm high school educated, didn't really go to college. So I interview really well and I got the job, worked my way up from the bottom, got my Series 7, 63, 66, became a full financial advisor, moved back to St. Louis and in 2011, got out of that eventually. 2015, got my real estate license again. So just selling houses, kind of coming back full circle. And then in about 2018, 2019, I actually discovered Buyers Club. So I joined up with Magnolia Real Estate, who was kind of a sister company at the time to Buyers Club. And the broker, Matt, was like, hey, investing really well. What about real estate investing? Why don't you show up to Buyers Club? So literally, I just started showing up to the tent and I was like, oh, okay. Brian Schroeder was the guy who really just kind of brought it all down to earth. Brian Schroeder was like my definition of the millionaire next door. Like, you know, he had 100 and some odd rental properties at the time. You'd check out next to him at Target and you'd never know he was worth millions. I
love that.
You know, so, and he just talked about it in a way, introduced me to the BRRRR strategy, you know, and just talked about it in a way that just really brought it down to, you know, how you can do it, how you can execute it. You know, Robert, for all of his success, none of his books really never give you a step-by-step of like, you know, what you should do. So Brian was the one that kind of brought it full circle. And then fast forward a couple years later, Fasterhouse actually approached me. Lucas had approached me to become an acquisitions manager. So I did that for about 3.5 years. So that's kind of, full circle of how I got into this whole thing.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now working for doing the Rich Dad, Poor Dad stuff.
Yeah.
Did you actually, like, obviously you're getting to pretty intimate with this guy. Did you ever have any like one-on-one conversations about the stuff as almost like a mentor type thing? No. I was a lowly cameraman. Yeah. You know, don't approach the talent sort of thing. No, I mean, he was definitely personable, you know, but never like, hey, Robert, can I pull you over to the side and like ask you a few questions? And at that point I just never would have done it anyway. But yeah. That's still awesome.
Very cool. I mean, when I always say Rich Dad, Poor Dad kind of changed my life. Cause like I read that, like when I got my real estate license, I didn't really do anything for the first couple months until I was introduced to, through a friend, my buddy who ended up becoming my mentor and that was like the first thing he told me to do. It was like, he gave me 3 books to read and Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the first one. And I was like, how, you know, like it changed my life. And I've read it pretty much every year since. Like, it's like one that I go back to every year and just like reread. Yeah. And it changed kind of like the trajectory of where I was going in life, I think.
100%. And Brian Schroeder, he's kind of like my rich dad, you know, thankfully, you know,
that's so cool
with the mentorship and obviously Brian and Suzanne, they own Faster Funds. So I get to work with them intimately. So it's really awesome to be, you know, kind of in that circle and to get to learn from those guys. So yeah.
And Faster Funds, that's a hard money lender, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we lend hard money. So normally, you know, investors are approaching us for those upfront costs to actually buy it. You know, so most people think, oh, I have to have a ton of money, you know, to invest in real estate. With Faster Funds, we'll get you approved with 2 things: a credit score of 640 or higher, no recent foreclosures or bankruptcies, and $15K of cash that's been seasoned for 90 days. If you have those, we'll approve you for a whole year.
Oh, wow.
And then you go and you can make loan requests and we'll vet the deal. So obviously there's vetting the person, but that's a pretty low barrier to entry.
Right.
And then from there, that's where we look at each deal. You know, here in St. Louis, you guys know this as investors, streets matter, neighborhoods matter. We put our feet in every house that we loan on. So, you know, if a borrower comes to us and says, hey, I got this one under contract, we actually go walk it with them. You know, I don't say that we coach, but we definitely hold a hand a little bit to make sure that our borrowers are successful. There's plenty of hard money lenders out there that will be happy to give you money and chop off your fingers if they don't return it later. Right? We don't want to do that. You know, Suzanne and Brian have had this company around over 10 years. They've only taken back 5 properties in those 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So how they set it up is really important.
Oh, for sure.
Wow.
Now for those that don't know the difference from what I do and what he does, his is more for the investment side of things and buying and flipping. We don't like buying and flipping because if you do it within 6 months, I'm having to pay back the money that we made.
Yeah.
And as much as I love helping people get into houses, I also have a family to support.
Yeah.
But, you know, ours aren't really meant for that. Ours are more, if you're looking on the investment side, it's more buying and holding where, you know, and ours is probably going to be a little bit more restrictive and guidelines and things like that, where yours is more basically getting a feel for the person and making sure they have just these two main things. And then if it makes sense, more common sense lending.
Absolutely.
Which ours is 0 common sense. There's 0 common sense in mortgage lending. It is insane, but that's why we have that. And then you also mentioned you do some private money lending. What's the difference between hard money and private money for the people that are listening? Yeah.
So I don't personally do any private money lending. I have private money lenders. So the difference between hard money and private money is essentially who's lending it to you. So hard money, we're a business, right? We're not a bank. We're not a loan institution in that way, but we're a business that makes our money lending out money. Private money, this is your friends, your family, people that you know with money who are willing to invest in you with those funds. So that's the difference between private money. And I pay my private money investors a market rate return. That number is different based on the investor themselves and what risk I'm taking with their money and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's kind of the main difference.
Awesome.
What's like a normal rate for private money? I mean, I'm sure there's a range like you just said, but like what's that range? Like what are they ballpark?
Yeah, I pay my investors in between 8 to 12%.
8 to 12. Okay. That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I know some friends who have private money investors that are lending to them at 5 and 6%. Wow. So it's really who you know.
You know the relationship you have with them.
Yeah. Because you figure, so like, let's say you approach your uncle, right? Who's retired. He's had all of his money in 401ks, IRAs, stuff like that. And he wants fixed income, right? He can actually invest from a self-directed IRA, give you a loan to your name. And if he's cool with 6% on that money, you can pay him that money. And he's a private money investor. Well, his IRA is. Or they've got money that's just sitting in a CD that's like super safe with a bank, right? CDs are paying like...
Well, they were at one point. I think the highest I ever saw was like 3 or 4%.
Trash.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
basically just enough to outpace inflation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you've got somebody that wants to have money work for them that's backed by real estate, you can do that with private money and pay them more than what they're getting in the bank. So for somebody who's getting paid 3.5% on a CD and you pay them 6%, they might be like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, this is great.
No, for sure. And that's, like I mentioned before, I'm looking to add to what I already do on the mortgage side and getting licensed and adding the financial aspect to it. I just think overall that's going to help my clients that are buying a house as well as looking and getting into that investment real estate stuff, because a lot of the financial advisors that I know a lot of them don't really take into account the real estate side of things, which is a massive way of building wealth if done correctly.
I feel like that's for a specific reason, and it's because they can't get paid on it. Right. Don't get me wrong. Like as a financial advisor, you should get paid for what you do. Right. But like, they can't make money if you invest in real estate. Now, if you invest in a REIT or a real estate mutual fund or ETF, that's certainly possible.
Well, that's because the conversations I've been having recently, a lot of these financial advisors is a lot of them are starting to do not just commission, but fee-based type stuff, like as a consultant.
Yep.
And, that's kind of the avenue that I was thinking of getting into, is like, I know a lot about this.
Yeah.
Clearly having been in the mortgage business for as long as I have, backgrounds in finance, and then adding these aspects, like being able to set up a consulting fee for people and I'm not going to charge them an arm and a leg.
Yeah.
But, enough to compensate me for my knowledge that like, that's the way you're starting to see a lot of these financial advisors go, which is smart.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they talk about asset allocation and diversification. What's diversification to me if you don't have real estate?
Exactly. Are you truly diversified?
Yeah.
Not really.
Probably not. Their definition, like I said, ETF or mutual fund or real estate.
Small cap, large cap.
Exactly. For me, real estate is the safest, longest term investment that you can buy, because what's going to be here in 20 years? This table, this room, or the bond that you're taking out. If you would have asked people in 2004, hey, I'm buying a General Motors bond right now, and this thing is going to be fine, right? Nobody would bat an eye. And here in 2009, when they went bankrupt, you got paid back pennies on the dollar. So you're investing your full faith and credit on a different company, whereas with real estate, you're investing your full faith and credit on the building that you're buying, the asset that's here. So
you can physically touch it, you can improve it, you can, and if it deteriorates, I mean, you can prevent that.
Yeah. Or in St. Louis, we have tornadoes. Or if a tornado cuts it down, you have insurance. Right. Insurance will pay you for that. Yes. So, yeah.
Well, I'm sure, do you get asked, I know we get asked this question a lot, but do you get asked like, oh, how's the market? What do you see going on in the market right now?
All the time.
Well, there we go.
You tell people you work in real estate in any capacity.
Yeah. How's the market?
Yeah.
Always.
Well, so obviously the market that you're working in is slightly different than the market that we're working in.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, our market needs your market because we need more homes.
Yeah.
What are you seeing locally here in St. Louis in terms of availability for people to go out there and buy and flip homes if this is something that they want to get into?
Yeah. I mean, finding deals is the hardest part of this business. Anybody who's been in it long enough knows that that's where the money is made, right? Is in finding those deals. But everybody has, we talk about it in real estate, your SOI, your sphere of influence. Everybody has a sphere of influence. If you put it out there that, hey, I'm looking to buy houses that need a lot of work, somebody is going to bring you a house at one point that's probably going to make sense. As far as on the hard money lending side, I've seen in the last year an increase of the number of rental loans that we're doing and the number of flip loans kind of staying the same. So, at one point we had 33% rental loans and about 66% flip loans. That's kind of like a year ago, I think we were at closer to like 18% rental loans. So with interest rates coming down, which on your side is important, people are buying rentals because they can cash flow.
Right.
And I know earlier you said, we're kind of separate in our businesses, but we love lenders like you. Our borrowers love lenders like you because as a borrower, if I borrow a property that let's say it's going to be worth $200,000. If I'm buying it at $100,000, your underwriters, your appraisers are never going to approve a loan based on future value. That's what we do. But if I go in and buy it for $100 and then I improve the value by $50,000 or $60,000 and I come to you with a house that has a tenant in it, that I just improved the value. And I say, hey, if you go and appraise this house for $200,000, will you give me a loan for 80%? You're probably going to say,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we need, lenders like you on the backside
for sure.
So that, people who are buying rentals can go buy it, improve it, get a renter in there, and then come to you for a loan.
Yeah, especially in situations especially with how big DSCR loans have gotten.
Oh yeah.
And we've got multiple investors plus our own in-house programs that we can do that stuff with. And, it's funny though, like we'll get inquiries like, well, I heard about this DSCR program. So really you don't need my income. The house just has to cash flow. I want to do this with no money down. And I'm like, well, you're going to need to put some money down.
Yes.
So in that situation, it's like, all right, now I'm going to refer you to a hard money lender, get the money. You're going to need some skin in the game on this.
Yeah.
And go that route. And then we'll refinance you into a DSCR loan.
Yeah.
So,
and it's also property dependent because, a lot of investors think that they can go buy a house or, that's fully renovated and then buy it with zero money down, even on a DSCR loan, like, no, you're going to have to put 10 or 20% down.
They're going to want some skin in the game.
Yeah,
100%.
Like they have to take, they're going to give you hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're going to want something from you.
Not to mention, you have to get it to the point to where it actually cash flows.
100%.
So like if you're trying to buy this with no money down, it's probably not going to cash flow.
Right.
So, with the rents that are going to be required. So you need to put money down to get it to the point that it's going to cash flow.
Yep.
To where it makes sense for a DSCR loan. And I think a lot of people get that wrong where it's like, oh, I can just get in and not have to put any money down or income or anything. I'm like,
not quite. Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
We're not quite there yet.
Are you seeing on the DSCR space? Because I know it's pretty popular around the country for like Airbnbs. Are you guys lending on those types with your DSCR loans, or is it mostly just kind of local?
I haven't done anything for an Airbnb yet.
Okay.
Most of it's been long-term rentals type
Gotcha.
stuff.
Yep.
So that's a good question. I'll have to dive into that, but I just haven't had anybody approach me in that sense yet.
Yeah.
Most of the time we're looking at it and if, people are wanting to get into that, it's like, well, hey, maybe we can figure out a way, like if you're going to live there for more than 6 months, this is your primary residence.
Yeah.
And going at it that route.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you can get in with minimum down, this and that. Like that's a lot of it,
Get creative.
In terms of that. But a lot of the stuff, a lot of it is, I've got, like right now, I've got a couple deals that are duplexes where someone basically house hacking. And house hacking has been huge for people, especially like first time home buyers and getting in. And especially with like, we've got a program right now where you can get, it's a 1% conventional program.
Oh man.
So you can
That's
get,
great.
So as long as you're making less than $88,950 a year,
Okay.
which is the majority of people. Right.
Yeah.
And you're a first time home buyer, you can get in, you could buy your first rental property. You could buy a 4-family. And as long as we can show that, and we can kind of offset the monthly payment, if there's those 3 units are already rented, we can offset that payment a little bit, as well as with the income, keeping it below that 88. Now you can get in, and the max that we can give you is a $5,000 grant. So like if you're looking at a $300,000 property,
sure,
instead of giving you 6, we're giving you 5. That 5,000 is the max that we can get, but you're still getting in with a little over 1%.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So I know, and like VAs, like I talk to veterans all the time about this. Like we did one where this guy showed up at closing and got paid $12,000
Holy
to buy a $450,000
Four
family
in the Grove.
Yeah.
That
is insane.
That's like, crazy.
He told me he's getting a check. How much?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, because zero down payment. Did a great job of negotiating, getting closing costs covered. And then he got the prorated rents for the 3 units that were due.
And with the VA loan, no PMI too. Right. So you're saving yourself. That's huge.
And it's a better rate than conventional or any other rate out there.
Yeah. So, I feel like that's definitely been a trend lately for like anybody under the age of like maybe 26, 28 that comes and talks to me. House hacking is usually in the first couple sentences.
Dude, I mean,
I wish.
Oh, dude, if I could do it over, man, if I would have known this shit 10 years ago when I bought my first house, I would have, and I didn't have 2 kids like I do now. And that's what I would one time a year. We would just be, me and my wife
every year
for 10 years. We're buying a duplex or a 4-family every year for 10 years.
Yep.
It's going to suck for 10 years. We got to move every year. But at the end of 10 years, we're going to have 10 rental properties.
And the trick to that is doing it in one person's name.
Yes.
Like whether you're married, if you're married, especially like, because you can only have 10 mortgages in your name.
Yes.
So if you're a married couple, that means you can get up to 12 mortgages combined.
Mm-hmm.
And we're I want to do 2. I'm like, my professional advice on that is even if you're married, if one person can qualify for what it is you're wanting to buy, do the loan in just that one person's name. There's no reason to tie up 2 people's debts for one purchase.
Yeah.
So that, that's a lot of conversations that we're having too, that most people aren't really diving into. So, or thinking about, but that's the case. Like, cause especially when it comes time to move up,
you
got a married couple buying their first home and the loan's in one person's name. Well, guess what? Now, when they decide they do want to move up, obviously in a few years, that person's the spouse that's not on the loan is probably going to have raises and things like that.
Right.
That's going to put them into it because they're married. And the mortgage, taxes and insurance are included in that mortgage payment. We don't have to count that against them.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at, hey, you got a fresh slate right here. You can get in with, you make less than $88,950. Great.
Gotcha.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here's this program. Let's get you going. So there's a lot of things on the backside and the fun, that's the fun aspect of it.
Yes.
And so, but it's just one of those things that people don't think about.
Yeah. If you're young and single, hear this, like buy a house.
Yeah. House hacks.
You like buy a 4-family.
Your future self will thank you.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then it may cost you some money, but get a property management company.
Yeah.
Because handling all that stuff on your own is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And let a professional handle that. Yes, it may cost you some money, but in the end, like this is where my thing, like you're talking about how you're going to have an actual physical piece of thing, but like, think of it like this. If you go and invest in a company that's paying a dividend, there's a chance that they may not pay you a dividend.
Yep.
They vote on that, whether there's a dividend being paid or not. But on a mortgage, the biggest thing with buying stocks and all that is the future value.
Yeah.
All right. You're hoping that continues to appreciate. Well, buying a home is the same way though. You're going to have the appreciation, but now you're also getting a dividend on top of that monthly.
Every month.
Where buying a stock, they might do a semi-annual, maybe a quarterly dividend. And it is, and I don't know. I think investing in real estate is a great, like you said, diversify your portfolio, add some sort of safety net to what you already have. And unfortunately, it's something a lot of financial advisors, at least that I know. Hell, I fired a financial advisor because he was telling people not to buy homes. I'm like, you're literally telling people not to do what I do for a living. Like, do you want me to give you more money to
this isn't going to work.
This isn't going to work, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if you treated it, every rental that I buy, I consider that I'm building my own pension. Right.
Yeah.
So like pensions are a thing of the past, unless you joined Boeing 20 years ago, you're not getting that pension. But if you buy a house, 1-2 houses a year for 10 years, you have just 10 properties in your early 20s or 30s. By the time you retire, those are paid off and those are going to be paying you, like you said, mailbox money every month for the rest of your life.
Right.
So that's the power of real estate to me.
Oh, well, not to mention too, on the lending side, you do own these free and clear. Mm-hmm. If it ever gets to a point where you're short on cash or you're needing money, take out a home equity line of credit or a cash out refinance. Yeah. That's tax-free money. And that people don't think about. It's just it's you pull it out, and then that's the same thing too, is like, there's I want to double check this, but I would like to think that because it's the cost of acquisition and all that when it comes to capital gains, that when you have a property, then if say, you're wanting to sell this to reduce those, on investment properties, it's going to be there no matter what. Mm-hmm. But like if you own your home free and clear, and I think for a single person is what, 250,000, married couples, 500,000 in terms of gains and what they're going to be selling it for.
Yep.
If you get to that point, do a cash out refinance, wait 6 months, sell your house. Now you're not going to get hit with those capital gains because you've already pulled that money out tax free. When you go to sell it, the mortgage is getting paid off. So now that difference is, up to 20, you're gonna have 20% equity in that house minus what you pay real estate agents.
Yeah.
Instead of getting taxed on all of that, you've already pulled that money out, and you might get taxed on that very little bit that you're netting.
That's the one thing I've heard from probably the most successful people is using debt, right? Because debt is something that they don't tax. I just refinanced a 4-family. I got a $30,000 check at closing, and because that's debt, that's tax-free money. And that's the best money out there,
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah. And you're always looking to limit your tax liabilities.
For sure.
That's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
well, what do you think the biggest mistakes you see new real estate investors make, and how can they avoid them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like trying to do it all themselves. Some of our best borrowers are those contractors, those carpenters, those guys who have some sort of trade. They come in, and it's good because they know that trade. But what they do is they then try to go in and they're like, I just want to do everything. And the speed of money is very important. As a hard money lender, we're only lending you money for 6 months. So you've got to renovate this and either sell it or get a renter in and refinance out in that 6 months. So I think step one is to build your team, right? That team should include lenders, both hard money and long-term lenders. That team should include real estate agents, right? Because if you're flipping, you need to know what it's going to sell for. People try to do all of this on their own. And don't get me wrong, you can, but you're just adding so much heartache to the process. And I don't know about you guys, but I learned by banging my head up against a wall and figuring out how to not do that again. So my first flip that I ever did, I bought the house. I was going to turn it into a rental. COVID happened. And I was like, maybe I should sell this. After all was said and done, I lost 25 grand, right? If I had a team around me, I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't have lost that money. The other thing is, soaking up a lot of information. Obviously, there's podcasts out there. There's books out there. There's also really great coaches. If you have extra expendable income to hire a coach, they are definitely, and I mean specifically for real estate investing. Life coaches are great. Therapists are great, but specifically for real estate investing, that's another thing that, they think, I can just, again, do this all on my own. So I would really try to build your team first, because that's what's going to make you successful in the long run.
Dude, I couldn't agree more.
100%.
I've definitely done all the things that you just said. Tried to do everything myself. Like I remember my first couple flips I did. I was the one in there painting, and I'm the one doing all the, doing all the carpentry work. We hired out for all the trades, but like putting in the trim, doing all the paint, like all the, it was just, and then I look at, in the last handful of flips I've done, I've hired everything out because I've realized whenever I do take on a project like that, I'm spending way more time over there. My real estate sales dip. And it's like, that's what's paying the bills. I need to, I'm not getting paid to paint, and, so that's, make a little bit less money on the back end, but it's just so much worth it for my time and my sanity, man. Like I can't tell how many late nights I'd spend over at a house, like painting till 2:00 in the morning, because I just want to get this room done,
No way.
It's just like, dude, I just can't do it anymore. And I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned from them for the most part. Yeah, but it's quite the road for sure.
The fuck around and find out method.
Oh man,
for sure.
It's the best and worst method all at the same time.
Absolutely. Some of the best learning experiences you can have are by fucking around and finding out.
Yep.
So they may be expensive, but you'll never do it again. Yeah, that's for sure.
You might get punched in the face, but you won't make that mistake twice.
No,
for sure.
Well, and another aspect of and things that you do is the STL Men's Group.
Yes,
president of the STL Men's Group. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So STL Men's Group, it was started by Mark Joe from Omen Coffee, and it blew up super quick. It got too much for one person to handle. So Mark took a step back, and there's been a couple iterations since then, but it kind of dwindled down to about 7 to 8 guys. And we said, okay, we know this is important. I personally have been through a lot of therapy in my life, and I know that like men need other men. So I'm like, look, guys, we have to keep this going somehow. So that's what we've done. We've made a commitment to keep it rolling. We established kind of a framework, a president, a seat, a membership coordinator, and a social coordinator. And those knuckleheads voted me as president this year, so they're stuck with me. But our slogan is better men for the betterment of St. Louis. We want guys who want to show up to be better men. So we'll show up, have some announcements, wins, challenges, stuff like that. And then somebody usually talks on some sort of topic for 35, 45 minutes. There's a journal prompt, and then we all journal, right? Most guys, at least that I've talked to, I'm like, hey, bring a journal. And they're like, what are you talking about? Journal. Yeah. Like most people don't journal. So it's really great for those first timers to show up because it's actually the first time that they're putting their thoughts down, on paper. A good friend and a mentor of mine, Matt Granados, he says, have you guys ever put together a puzzle? Yeah, that's pretty easy. Have you ever tried to put together a puzzle without taking the pieces out of the box? No, right? Well, that's what we do with our thoughts, right? So if all of our thoughts are in our head all the time and we don't get them down on paper, how can we organize them? How can we actually put that puzzle together? So that journaling piece is how we can put some of those puzzle pieces together.
Such a good analogy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had never thought about it like that, but it's so true.
Yeah, it's really because we're all just winging it, right? To some extent, we're all just trying what we've learned. And if nobody's taught us these things, so that's one of the reasons why we journal at the men's group. And then we break off into small groups and then just kind of unpack, what we just learned. And that's where obviously, nobody really wants to show up in front of a room full of 20, 30 people and get super vulnerable and tell them about the struggles that they're going through. But if you're in a group of 3 to 5 guys, you can open up a little bit and trying to forge those brotherhoods, those friendships. That's what STL Men's Group is all about.
Yeah, well, that's awesome.
That's really cool.
And as the president and having been doing this for a while, what does healthy male brotherhood actually look like in practice and in real life?
That's a great question. We just talked about our last meeting was building brotherhood. And, I pulled it from the Bible, iron sharpens iron, right? Everybody wants to talk about that, but they forget about the sparks, right? If you're being challenged by your brother, there's probably going to be some sparks, but it's learning that the people who you want in your life to actually call you forward, they're going to stab you in the front, not the back, right? You're going to see that it's coming and they're like, hey, this is going to sting. This is really going to hurt. But I love you enough to give you feedback. I love you enough to call you forward into the person that I know that you're wanting to be. So how does that look like in person? Having difficult conversations, and showing up, right? Trust is something that's built, slowly. You can't just walk into a room and all of a sudden everybody trusts you. We all know that from business, right?
Absolutely.
It has to be built conversation by conversation. And not everybody should have access to your vulnerability, right? I'm a pretty vulnerable guy. I tell my story pretty openly. There's been people who have used stuff against me and, in my story, but that's not necessarily on them. It's like giving them access to you. So that vulnerability has to be reciprocated. And, it's really, I forget, is it Jim Rohn? You're the sum of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. Mm-hmm. I think that I probably misquoted who that belonged to.
But pretty close.
But, evaluating those and not just necessarily saying like, oh, I only have to have 5 killers around me at all times, but just knowing that if you don't have the 5 people in your life, the 5 brothers in your life that you can go to with difficult stuff, not only that, but who will also cheer you on when you win. Right. There's been friendships that I've had where, you get a big win and you share it and they're like immediately stealing joy.
Right.
And you're just like, hold on a second, this brotherhood should really be forged, in those small moments where you need somebody to root for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think people, I've had similar experiences where, people bringing you down like that. And it's just like, makes you realize that, maybe this isn't the kind of person I want to be hanging out with all the time.
Yeah.
Or maybe this isn't the person I share these kinds of things with anymore. Cause it's like, I only want to share that with people who are going to bring me up and want to, cheer me on and, make me feel like I'm, just be a cheerleader for us, man, and
100%.
it's hard to, I think it's hard to pat sometimes it's hard to pat yourself on the back and you need it from others, to validate what you're doing.
You're going to be your toughest critic.
Yeah,
you're always
for sure.
going to be your toughest critic, and you need somebody there that's going to be like, dude, fucking get off yourself. Like,
dude, it's fucking good.
Like, you just did a really good fucking job.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and especially in today's society when we're constantly trying to strive to the next thing, right? It's like if you have goals at the beginning of the year and you hit them, the second part of those goals should be celebration, and oftentimes the next year's here. So we gotta plan goals for next year.
We gotta make those goals bigger next year. Right?
Yeah. So if you don't have those people in your corner that are like, no, dude, like you just killed it. Like you should take time to celebrate. I'm going to celebrate you right now, whatever it is. Let's go grab a drink or, have a cigar or whatever that is. So, and obviously I know men's health is important to you guys. What would you say has probably been the most important part about building brotherhood? I mean, obviously you guys have this show together, so you've built brotherhood that way, but like with the men's relationships in your lives, how have you felt like, or what's the most important part of building brotherhood? Well,
for me, I mean, I think the biggest like community of brotherhood that I've experienced, in the last, really my whole life has been in jiu-jitsu,
okay.
Cause it's not only is it a very physically intimate sport. Like, I mean, I'm literally trusting these people with my life and my limbs a lot
killers.
Often, I got to trust this guy that he's got me in an arm bar. He's not going to break my arm. He's going to give me time to tap, there's this and then there, but that also that physical, closeness also like brings us closer together, like as friends. Like I've had some of the best, closest conversations with like some of my jiu-jitsu buddies, and it's just, it's created this community of like men from all different walks of life. And that's something that I think has been one of the coolest parts about it is it's the most diverse group of people, like you've got a lawyer next to a plumber who's, working with, there's a doctor rolling with a concrete guy, and everybody's the same, it's just all that matters at the time. Doesn't matter how much money's in your bank account. Doesn't matter, if you're gay, straight, from wherever in the world.
Yeah.
Are you good on the mat? Like, are you good at this? Well, if you're not, well, I'm going to help you. Well, you suck. You're good at this. Well, I suck at that. Like, help me. And awesome. It's like become such a mirror for everything else in my life.
Yeah.
Like it kind of has like shown me the way, and it's made me a better learner for sure. Like I feel like it's the only sport I've ever like gotten good at.
Okay.
I played a lot of sports growing up, and I was never really good at anything because I never like put the time into it.
Yeah.
Like this, I've really put the time into for like the last, 7.5 years. And like, I'm not going to ever say I'm good, but I'm I'm better than I used to be. I'm better than the guy who shows up on his first day,
That's
and I can show you a few things at this point, but am I, even close to, I'll never figure the whole thing out. And it's just a puzzle that can never be solved. And I think that is just created and it definitely attracts a certain kind of person. Cause if you're going to stick with it, it's a really fucking hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And so if you stick with it for a year or two and you consistently are still showing up, like that takes a strong individual. And I think it's made me, so surrounding myself with those strong individuals has been life-changing for me.
That's awesome. It sounds like the personification of rising tides lift all ships.
100%.
Right. Everybody's in that room trying to get better and trying to help everybody else get better.
Yeah. And
that's huge.
If you're the best guy in the room, you're in the wrong room for sure.
That's deep.
Yeah. If you look around and you are, you're the king of the room, like you probably should go find a new room because you're not going to be getting much better.
That's good.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that and everything that he just said. I mean, and having played professional baseball, you would think like that I would have had a strong brotherhood in that, but like, you got to think you're in the minor leagues and you're on a team of 25 guys. We're all competing. Well, pitchers, I was a pitcher. So you've got 13 of us and you're all competing against one another to get moved up. You're all trying to get to that big league spot where they're only going to have 13 pitchers. But you're competing with everyone else. So you're not really getting close with those guys.
Yeah.
That's your competition. And you're closer with guys on other teams because you're not in competition. Like, you're on the field in competition with them, but like, I'm not competing for his spot in his organization. But with jiu-jitsu, I mean, like he said, I mean, it's literally the hardest thing. It's the hardest. I like starting my morning with it because it is the hardest thing I'll do all day.
There you go. And
it makes everything else easy, but you're in a group, like you said, you're in a class with people that are all there to get better, all there to help, and it's fun. and now I'm new to this and I get my ass kicked all the time.
Yeah.
But it is fun. And
yeah,
that first time you hit a submission and, I've been doing this for, a little over a year now. And that first time I hit a submission on somebody and it worked, I was like,
let's go.
Pumped. Yeah, I was pumped up,
Yeah.
And everybody's like, and everybody's happy for me. I got my first stripe and like, I'm a white belt getting my first stripe. And there's a guy next to me getting his second stripe on his black belt. And everybody's cheering for me just as much as they're cheering for the guy getting his second stripe on a black belt. So like, it's just, that's just the community you're around. Everybody wants to see everybody improve and get better. And you're pushing yourself to your limits. I mean, there's times where like you're leaving everything on the mat. Like I can't tell you how many times, it's almost every class where I'm just like laying there dead.
Starfished at the end.
Just get up and there's my soul
just laying there.
Sweat on the ground. But yeah, I mean, no, it's been incredible. The people are incredible. The relationships I've formed in just a short time have been great. And then we also have a men's group that we have up here that we meet with. My business coach that I have started a men's group up here right now. I think there's like 6 of us, and we get together once a month, and similar to what you guys do. You one guy will get up and talk and share and like talk about the things that are going either good or bad. And, we just sit there and listen. And then it's like 5 minutes of us asking questions and then 5 minutes of us giving suggestions. And it's been great. I mean, it's the connections that we've had up here have been pretty awesome too. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that that's like a new thing with the 5 minutes of asking questions and then 5 minutes of giving them suggestions.
You get 5 minutes to talk on whatever it is you want to talk about, whatever you want to get out there.
Yeah.
And then it's 5.
And you have to sit there silently for 5 minutes while people ask you questions. Not silently.
We ask questions and it's like really like yes or no, real quick answers.
Yeah.
And then it's 5 minutes of them just sitting there in silence while we give suggestions, and they've got to soak it in and really puts the focus on one, us as, that aren't speaking, really listening with intent, like listening to understand where they're coming from so we can ask meaningful questions.
Yeah.
And then it's teaching that person that's there how to sit there and take it for 5 minutes when we're asking or giving deep or tough suggestions to push them forward. So it's been awesome. So
that's a huge skill, is not only like paying attention, but like being able to receive feedback. I recently did, I have a Friday mastermind group of other real estate investors, and we do an annual retreat just in Sedona last week. And I did mine on, it was an ask and a give, a question that was posed in a 2-day seminar I was at a few weeks ago. What is it like to be on the other side of me? And that's such a poignant question for both business and for personal. Like, what's it like to be on the other side of Casey Samuels, as a business person? But then it was funny because people went around the room and some people said some very positive things about me. And I was super grateful, had shed a few tears. And I was like, I'm really surprised nobody has said anything negative. And my wife said, well, I could speak up if you want. And I was like, oh no. So being able to ask questions, but then to have people either ask you questions or to receive that feedback, I feel like that's equally as important.
That was probably the biggest thing, because you mentioned therapy. I go twice or every 2 weeks.
That's
it's awesome. The greatest thing that I've probably could have ever done for myself. Yeah. Next to getting into jujitsu and getting back in the gym. Just like you're working out your body, you got to work out your brain and your thoughts and all of that, and your emotional intelligence. You got to do the things to strengthen that. And and it's just a great outlet to be able to go and speak to those things and get that stuff out there with somebody. It's been learning. The biggest thing I learned from that, though, it would be like listening to understand instead of listening to respond.
Yes.
And I like to be the best communicator and effective communicator. You're just a good listener.
Yeah.
And so that's my biggest takeaway from all the things that I've got, like with my divorce and all that stuff. That was like the biggest thing that I took away from a lot of that stuff. So
yeah. Being able to listen well, and to understand, that's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Right.
Most of us are just listening, waiting for the break and
to talk.
And then to defend yourself. Like if you're in a tough conversation, have you ever read the book Crucial Conversations?
I've not.
It's pretty good. I put that probably, especially for business, probably in my top 10 for business. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Because it teaches you, I mean, a lot of it is talking about basically listening, right?
Yeah.
You're sitting there trying to sitting there to understand, like, okay, what is it that they're feeling? Why is it that they're feeling that way? And then being able to ask the questions in a healthy way to get a response that's not defensive.
Yeah.
Because that's the problem, is most people will start asking questions and they'll ask them in a way that puts that person on a defensive that's not going to allow them to open up and share. And so it's been that, like I said, that's been one of the biggest books that I've read when it's come to business, and it's helped me with my team.
Yeah.
You know, my assistant and I tend to butt heads a lot. You know, him and I are very similar, and we butt heads frequently. And it's just, you know, learning how to communicate with him and to understand where he's coming from and why he may be frustrated. It's helped us.
Yeah.
So,
and if you listen long enough, you can actually, like you said, see where the other person is coming from.
Right.
It may not necessarily mean that you agree with it or that you're behind it, but you can actually see where they're coming from, you know. And when I was in acquisitions for Fasterhouse, sitting in these houses where people are going through really difficult times, right? You know, they've got a foreclosure sale that's in 2 weeks and they're like, nope, I still have time. And you're like, okay.
But you don't.
Yeah, but you don't. But also, let's dig in here. Let me ask questions to help understand where you're coming from, because in a way, you don't see what's coming, you know, and that's being able to listen and to help people out. That's such a huge, you got to bridge that gap.
And then effectively being able to communicate that to them in a way that's not going to,
turn them off.
Make
them slam the door in their face.
100%. Yeah.
Why do you believe men need more community now than ever?
Oh man. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to isolate, right? When things are going, I'll share with you the piece of feedback that my wife said. I'll speak up. She said, my husband has trouble asking for help. And you know, so that was aimed directly at me. And I think that's a lot of guys. I think a lot of us grew up with just like, we have to shoulder the burden. We have to do all these things. We have to put it on our backs. And the reality is that's not the case. You know, earlier I talked about how real estate investors need to set up a team. You need that team in life, not just in real estate investing, you know, so you need other guys who are out there willing to push you, willing to sit with you when stuff is going crazy, you know, and just have a place where you can be yourself and they'll be able to pick you back up off the floor, you know, and say, hey, dude, you're doing a good job. You're doing as good as you can. And, you know, that's it. I don't know about you guys, but I isolate. So spaces where guys are vulnerable to come together, I think that's huge.
Yeah, I've got that same condition.
Now, on the flip side, I mean, alone time, I think there's a difference between isolating and having alone time.
100%.
And I think having that alone time is huge. I know necessary. For me, for me to decompress at the end of the day and just kind of like, doesn't need to be long. And I think you talked about it on one of our last podcasts, where it's just like, you know, just taking that extra 10, 15 minutes before you walk into the house alone, just to get your mind right heading into the house. Like, same, you know, and being a single dad, like at the end of the day, you know, I pick up my kids from school and it's just me and them, and you know, getting away from work, getting away from that. And then once they go to bed, all right, I need 30 minutes, maybe an hour, just to kind of like silence.
Yeah.
Like they're 6 and 7. They're loud as shit.
Crazy.
They're like two little F5 tornadoes at all times.
Oh,
like,
man.
The place is always destroyed. And even before I like go to clean up, it's just because like if I'm still in that mindset and I'm like cleaning up, I'm gonna be pissed off about cleaning up. I'm gonna half-ass it. And so it's just taking that half hour to an hour just to kind of decompress in silence, do nothing, and just let my mind clean. And then it's like, all right, now I'm gonna get back up. I'm gonna go do the dishes, clean up all the shit that they flipped over and all that stuff, all the toys that they left out, like stuff like that. So, but no, I think, you know, but I make sure that there's a good distinction between, you know, being alone versus being isolated.
100%.
Being alone, having your alone time, great, need it. Taking it a step further to isolation, that's where problems come into play.
100%. Yeah. And Lord willing, you know, one of these days, my wife and I will have some kids, but you know, that's the thing is like, your kids didn't know the day that you just went through, you know, and you're carrying all that stuff into, I love what you said of just like pausing for 5 to 10 minutes before you walk in. Cause you know, that's going to be chaos.
100%. I do it every day. Right before it's not even 5 minutes. It's like 20 seconds. It's that, you know, it's like I put the car in park, turn off the car, sit there in silence. And I'm just like, or it's like, I take like just a deep breath before I walk in the door. And I'm like, just remember what you have in there. They don't care about the deal that fell apart today. They don't care about the, you know, the person, and rough customer, you know, rough client you're dealing with who's driving you crazy, or the, you know, the city inspector that just, you know, failed your occupancy inspection or whatever it is. Like, they don't give a shit about any of that. They want dad to sit down on the floor and play with them and play, play monster trucks, or go outside and, you know, watch him ride a scooter, or go ride, you know, run around with him, throw the ball with him, do whatever. Like, they don't care about any of the stuff at work. So it's like, I've been really trying to be mindful of like, all right, taking the business hat off, putting the dad hat on, and walking in the door and being present for my family. And I think over this last year, I've done a much better job of that than I have in the past. Cause I've talked about this on the show in the past, but like, you know, I've got 2 kids, and my oldest, he'll be 4 very soon. And, you know, but really for his, and I made this, you know, my wife, you know, brought it up to me, or, you know, I brought it up, and then she was like, well, this is why. Cause when our first was born, his first year of life, like, I just continued to work like I was before we had kids, you know, like I was just working all the time, you know, like I'd be gone all the time. I wasn't seeing him as much. I was gone a lot, you know, I mean, it was always a priority. I was always trying to be the best dad I could be when I was there, but I was gone all the time, you know? And it's like, of course I didn't have that like relationship with him when he was a baby that I have with the second, because I was way more present at home. And I, you know, cause I was having this conversation with my wife. I was like, hey, and I just feel so much closer with Theo than I ever did with Calvin at this age. And he's like, well, you're around a lot more. And I was like, oh, it was just like a gut punch. I was like, oh, you're right. Fuck, you know? Yeah. And so it's really made me, ever since that conversation, it was like a 2 seconds thing. And she probably didn't even think of a second about it, but it's something that I've thought about a lot. And I'm like, it's been a game changer for me. And it's like reframed how I look at everything. That's my family.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the same boat. I mean, I think we grew up with parents or in that era where we thought like, hey, now that we have kids, we got to do everything we can to provide for them. And, you know, oh, they don't need us in the first couple of years of their lives. Like, oh, you know, but no, that's their most formative years. That's what they're remembering. And, I missed out on both of it with both my kids. And ultimately, you know, part of the reason why we got divorced. And, you know, it's one of those tough pills you had to swallow. You know, I fucked around and found out, you know, like, hey, I put my business and working in front of my family, which led to things happening that, you know, that led to the divorce. And, you know, I really took a step back, and now I've got better quality time with my kids now than I did when I was married. I only get them half the time. You know, it's like yesterday we just went out and we went to the park for like 4 hours after I picked them up from school. Just outside nonstop. Now that the weather's nice, it's easier, you know, and they're getting into baseball, so that's always fun. Going out and just throwing the ball around, letting them run around and be kids, and you know, letting them learn on their own. So you know, it's just being there and showing up. And you know, I take my drive from here to when I pick them up on their school days. Like, that's my quiet time. Radio's off, phone's off, silence. I'm not talking to anybody. That's where I'm decompressing. So when I pick them up, I'm present for them.
Dad.
They got you.
So.
That's awesome.
Well, how do you balance entrepreneurship, family, personal growth, you know, without burning out?
Yeah, imperfectly. So a couple ways, you know, a planner, you know, I talked about Matt Kresko earlier with Life Pulse. He kind of introduced this strategy to me, and kind of rating yourself, how you've done internally, relationally, physically, and in a business sense last week on a scale of 1 to 10, right? And so you kind of rate yourself how you did last week, because those are 4 major components of life. Everything can kind of be, you know, centered around those. And then kind of goals for this week of what you want to do. And then the second part is doing a brain dump. So on Sundays, writing down all of the things that you have to do the next week, right? And this exercise that Matt has done a few times, I've seen him do it in a couple of different groups. It's like, okay, if working out is one thing, that's just one thing. You might do it 3, 4, 5 times a week, but it's one thing. Eating food is 3 times a day, but it's only one thing. So when you break it down like that, you really start to realize that we're not as busy as we think we are, right? And then he has you say, okay, how many of those things in your brain dump are actually going towards those 4 things that are meaningful in life? And a lot of people will do this exercise and realize that they have almost nothing on the brain dump that has to deal with the 4 things that are most important. How are you being relationally with your wife, with your kids, with your friends? How are you doing physically? Are you in the gym? Are you rolling on the mat? Are you whatever that is? How are you doing business? Are you making the calls that you're supposed to make? Are you making the connections you're supposed to make? So if you figure out that you're not doing things on your brain dump that are in those 4 categories, you're just going to burn out because you're not doing it. You're just doing it for the sake of doing it. So again, imperfectly, I don't do it every week. I need to do it every week. I'm getting better at doing it every week. But that's what I try to do, is to say, okay, if I'm going to do things this week, let me do them in the categories that really move the needle. And then the other part of this is also 80% of life are things that you can control. 20% of life are things that you can't control. If you don't account for the 80%, when the 20% comes, it feels like 100%. Right? So that brain dump is accounting for that 80%, knowing that you've got everything you need to do this week on the calendar. That's good. And then a lot of times what we'll do, I don't know if it's as men in general, but we'll say, oh, there's free time. I finished everything. Let me do 4, 5, 6 things. Well, now you don't have to do that. You've got space for that 20% because you know it's coming. It might not be Monday. It might not be Wednesday. It might be Friday, but that 20% is coming. So really just trying to aim at the things that are important in life on a week-to-week basis.
And I really like that exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
In our men's group, we do something kind of similar to we have the, what is it?
It's more of a monthly type.
A monthly kind of.
Yeah. And it's your mental health,
Look it up.
Yeah, I've got it on my other notepad, but mental health, spirituality, physical, family, business.
It's physical, mental, spiritual, career, social, financial, family.
Okay. And so rank it from 1 to 10, but we're not doing it on a week. We're basically doing it month to month.
Yeah. It was like, how did you do this past month spiritually? How did you do this past, how do you rate your intention? If your intention was, to get to the gym 3 days a week and you hit all 3, I'd give that a 10, but when you hit all 3 for all the whole month, then, I'd give that a 10 or whatever your physical thing is. Yeah. And then you kind of do that for every little category. And it's been it's a fun little exercise because it makes you really reflect on, like, how was this past month? Like, what did I, and I think journaling has been a huge thing for me. I've been pretty disciplined about that this whole year. Like, when I started, 2026, I was like, I'm going to get back into journaling because I've started and fallen off dozens of times at this point.
We all have.
But, this year I would say I've been more consistent than I think I ever been. I think I've only missed like 6 or 7 days this whole year so far. So I'm pretty proud of that. That's huge. Yeah. Pretty proud of that. It's like, I don't do it long. I literally set a 6-minute timer and that's it. 6 minutes. I do it on here so I can type a lot faster than I can write. But it's been a nice exercise just to dump out how I'm feeling, just because it's like you said, the puzzle piece thing. I'm like, keep thinking about that because it's like, how do you solve a puzzle if you don't have the pieces? Yeah. You're not looking at the pieces.
And I think that you said it like 6 minutes. Everybody thinks you need hours to do this stuff. Maybe when you first start it takes a little bit longer. It's a little bit clunkier. Sure. But now, my Sunday brain dump session, I can be in and out 15, 20 minutes. And I've got the week, planned and then, kind of looking at it on a day-to-day basis. So that's huge. Just 6 minutes. Yeah, 6 minutes. You said something earlier too. It's like you take 20 seconds outside in the car. Everybody has 20 seconds to just breathe.
Yeah, sure.
But we convince ourselves that we have to get to the next thing. Yeah. We got to get to the next thing. And it's like, no. You've got 10 seconds. You got 20 seconds. You've got 6 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. You can find 6 minutes in your day to get a pad of paper or get on the computer, however you want to journal. You don't have to handwrite it.
Yeah.
Like I personally, my handwriting's dog shit and I can type a lot faster than I can write. So I was like, I'm going to be able to get more words and more things out here than that. And I like the fact that I'm never going to, I guess I could lose the iPad, but all in the cloud, right?
Yeah. They're tracking us.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I guess whoever can look into my iPad
Deep
here will
thoughts.
see all my deep thoughts.
Yeah. And if you can't find 6 minutes, look at your screen time. I'm calling myself out here.
Same.
Dude.
Yeah.
There's times, because I mean, a lot of the stuff, like we do a lot of social media stuff together, a lot of fun, goofy videos. And I mean, if you go and look at our messages on Instagram, it's nothing but funny videos back and forth. We don't really ever talk. It's just funny messages.
Yeah, we just send each. Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
You know,
That's how you know your best friends, right? You just send memes to each
and so,
other.
there's times where I can get lost on that rabbit hole where I'm like, oh, I'm only going to do this for like 10, maybe 10 minutes.
I'm looking for work.
Yeah, this is work. And the next thing you know, an hour later, I'm like, what the fuck did I just do?
Yeah.
It's just
it's a black hole.
Oh my gosh.
For sure. Definitely is.
I mean, it's great for building, using it. If you use it, just like anything, you use it properly, it's a tool. It's a great tool, but it can also be very detrimental to mental health and all of the time management, all of the things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I try not to follow any, I think the only news that I follow is stuff that relates to what I do for a living.
Yep.
And so unfortunately right now, all the shit going on in the Middle East is having a major effect on what I do. So it's like having it now, it's like, oh fuck, I'm getting wrapped into the politics and all this bullshit.
Yeah.
Why can't we just stick with inflation and employment data? Like,
that's
easy.
Right.
Like, there's,
threat of war.
Yeah.
Don't care. Like, I don't want to read it.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
sorry.
No, you're good.
Well, so what does success look like look like to you personally?
Yeah. So this kind of comes back to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and doing the funeral exercise. Have you guys ever done that? Okay. So the funeral exercise, really quick in a nutshell, is, pretend you're 80 years old, you're dead, you're in the casket. What is the person who delivers your eulogy? What do they say? What do the people who attend your funeral say? Right? What if you want to go so crazy, what's the food that they have there? You know what I mean? Like, but really immerse yourself in that example and then work your way backwards. I would love for my eulogy to say that he loves Jesus, right? That's first and foremost. Like, secondly, that he loved his wife and he loved his children. I don't have any kids yet. Like I said, Lord willing, we're going to be here soon. But, those are the things that I aim at long-term. So for me, success comes back to the message of Jesus, which is love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. To me, that's success. I know that's not, the flashy thing that people talk about, adding zeros to your bank account, all that stuff. To me, the rest of it will work itself out. If I focus on loving people and loving God, the rest is just great.
I guess that kind of answers the question I was going to ask. I was like, because you've always talked, you were talking a little bit about your faith and how important that is to you. And I was just going to say, how have you learned to let faith guide your decisions without forcing it on others?
Yeah, I think it comes back to that verse of loving people. Some people you can love from a distance, right? And everybody thinks of loving people in a different way. So how faith guides my decisions is ultimately, I pray every morning. So you talk about quiet time. I do my daily devotional. I read the Bible and I pray and I say, Lord, what do you want me to do today? Right. And this is a silly example, but my wife and I were on a walk around the neighborhood and we have this normal track that we walk, right? Like 2 normal tracks. So we're taking the left track and she was like, hey, can we take this one street down? And like immediately I wanted to be like, no, like we're doing our track, and I was like, all right, cool. So we did it, and we made our way around. And as we're coming up, I look over and I see, I don't want to say elderly, probably mid-late 60s, man and woman lifting this bookcase and they're trying to get it in the house. And I'm like, do you guys want some help? And the woman was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Yeah. So like, I just jumped over, helped them move these couple bookcases in, like whatever,
right.
I could really easily skip past that moment. But to me, that was a decision that God put into my life of that one person I could touch along a path that I walk all the time, that if we didn't go down this one road, we probably wouldn't have been there at the moment that we were. So how does faith guide my decisions is really just listening. I pray, I say, how can you use me today? And then I just try to listen and I try to show up. And that goes for your clients, the borrowers that show up in my office asking for advice or whatever that is. how can I be in that moment? How can I listen? And then how can I love them well? And whether that's advice on business, advice on, personal stuff, whatever that is. So I don't know if that answers your question.
That was perfect.
Awesome.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Good for, yeah. That's a great way of looking at it. And faith has been something that's come up a lot on this show. And it's not even something that we really intended for this show to go towards, it's, but we've had a lot of people come on and share their stories and faith and all that. First off, how long have you been on your journey in your faith? And then what's one of the biggest changes that you've noticed with your faith? And
Yeah, that's a great question. So I got saved in 4th grade Vacation Bible School, right? So for the Baptists out there, Vacation Bible School is like a week-long thing that you do in the summer to, beat the Bible into your head. No, but, so that's when I turned my life over to Christ. But as an 11-year-old, do you really know what that means? You do as an 11-year-old, but that, that changes as life goes on. And so from there, I've had really highs and really lows with my faith. I've tried, being the Bible thumping Christian. Again, I grew up Baptist. I was really good at thumping people over the head with the Bible. But that's not a way that people, see the love of Jesus, right? You don't use the Bible to hurt people. So, drugs, sex, and rock and roll. A couple of divorces later, really what it came down to is turning my life over and surrendering on a daily basis. So I've got this tattoo on my arm. This is actually Easter Sunday of 2017. So in our faith and our tradition, getting baptized, right? It's a symbol of washing away your old self and emerging out of the water as a new creation, right? Now, the baptism itself doesn't save you. It's the relationship with Christ, inviting Christ into your life and to say, hey, you are Lord of my life, right? So ever since that day, and like I said, you can see that this goes back really far, but ever since that day, it's just been a daily surrender. And I'm no perfect person by any stretch of the imagination. I still get pissed off. I still want to throat punch people, like that. That's a normal part of it. But saying, how can there be more of Christ in my life and less of me? Because if there's more of me, I know that it's going to end in disappointment. And I've tried that. Like I said, drugs, sex, and rock and roll, and failed relationships, failed marriages, failed businesses, the whole nine. I tried everything my way. And I got to a point, and that was the point where I was just like, all right, God, it's all yours. What do you want? And that was, it sounds really poignant. I was, in my loft, hands and knees, tears, snot, whole nine. And just like, what do you want from me, God? And he said, I want you. I was like, I don't know what that means, but okay, I'll give it to you. And ever since that day, it's just been the daily surrender.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. And that's, I'm sure that wasn't an easy thing to sit to and admit to, or and come to when you were in that time. But
no,
that's awesome. Good for you.
So you guys have said that the faith has kind of come up in this show before. Are there any kind of themes that you've seen run with that are coming through with these people? Like what are you seeing faith coming out in your show looking like?
Well, it's just been people talking about their experiences and how finding God and how finding Jesus has changed their lives, and kind of very similar to everything you just said. It's been a lot of similar stories where people, they've been baptized their whole life, but then, in their mid-20s, they found a reason to,
again,
to do it again. And,
yeah.
And it's been, it's just like, I'll be honest, like I'm not the most religious person. I went to Catholic school my whole life, for 12 years, kind of felt like it was kind of beat over my head. And then, over the last, and then, got to college, really just didn't go to church or do anything anymore. But really over the last year, just since we've had so many people in here, it's really like opened my eyes again to it. Yep. And, I need to, I want to get more into it. I just need to commit to it and do what I need to do. I know it needs to be done. I just need to do it.
The only thing I'll say, and I tell, what non-believers, like, ask Christ to reveal himself to you. Like if you want to test it out, pray and just say, God, if you're real, show me, man. And if you don't think the God of the universe can handle that question, you're barking up the wrong tree. You know what I mean? Like everybody, I grew up Baptist, and it was like the answer to every question was Jesus. And it's like, that's great. I love the fact that Jesus is the answer, but I'm struggling right now. I need some actual, actionable items that I can take. So in your faith journey, just ask and listen and look for those opportunities. And you might be walking past an elderly couple trying to move a bookcase in and just see an opportunity to help. And maybe that's what that looks like. But that's really good. And just digging deep and really saying, okay, how do I operate? And I think that's huge to even admit that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just how people felt lighter with it, just putting their life in God's hands. It just basically, they have basically he's got control of it all.
Yeah.
And letting him and the path that he has you on, just continue to follow that path, and it just makes them feel lighter. And I can attest to that. I mean, I guess it's been about 6 months. What was that? September, October of last year. Mm-hmm. I forget, it was in our men's group, and we were talking about it, because one of the things is spirituality and where we're at with that. And I was like, well, I've had a lot of guests on that have been talking about it, and I'm curious about it. We went to the same college in the heart of the Bible Belt, and I just got a bad taste. People are sitting there, like you said, trying to thump you on the head with it, and I'm just like, that you're just pushing me further away.
Yeah.
And so, having all these people that are way smarter than I am talking about how this has affected and changed their lives, something. So now, like, part of my morning routine is in the morning is reading, and I've got about 20 minutes set aside in the morning for reading, and I'll do 10 minutes in a book, just like a, self-improvement book or whatever. Yeah. And then 10 minutes in the Bible. And it's, like I said, the biggest thing is it's just lifted a weight off my shoulder, and it's been great. Awesome. Yeah. So, and still haven't made my way to church yet, but getting there but taking it one step at a time, and reading the Bible and getting that and recognizing how things are in my, stepping up in my life and recognizing those things has been the biggest thing for me. So
I don't know one person that hasn't been hurt by somebody that claims to be a Christian or and the thing is, as humans, we're fallible. You give any humans a set of rules, and they're going to use those rules to make other people feel worse. Think of St. Louis County inspectors. No, I'm kidding.
The worst.
I think of your neighborhood HOA. Right. Your neighborhood HOA president gets a really big head because of the president of an HOA. And those rules are small. You take a Bible, that has a lot of things in it. People are going to use those things to make other people feel small. And don't get me wrong, I love my Catholics. I grew up playing CYC sports, shout out St. Martin and Hazelwood. But, the one thing that I feel like the Catholics missed out on a lot was the personal relationship with Jesus, and having a relationship, a deep, intimate relationship. One time I heard someone say, okay, you get a phone, it's ringing, you pick it up, and you hear the voice at the other end. You know instantly if that's your best friend, right? Because why? You talk to them all the time. You know how they talk. You know how they talk to you. You know the tone of their voice. You know all of those things. How can you do that with Jesus unless you have a deeply personal relationship with him? So a lot of religions, I feel like, focus on the larger, the building is important, right? The people who show up to that building, and I feel going to church, being in a congregation is important, but it comes down to that personal relationship, because we're all battling different things. Everybody's fighting a fight that you have no idea what's going on. So that's where the personal relationship comes in to me.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Great. Well, Casey, this has been awesome having you in here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Enjoyed this conversation. I really enjoyed getting to know you here. But we do end the show the same way before we get you out of here.
You've already touched on it.
You pretty much already touched on it. But so as he was doing it, I was like, he's already answering the questions.
No. You asked us if the funeral game or what process or whatever. Yeah, we do. We think about that pretty much every episode, because at the end of the episode, we play a game called the Tombstone Game.
Okay.
So here lies Casey. What's it say on your tombstone?
He maximized the dash.
There you go.
That's good.
That's awesome.
I like it.
That's perfect.
Perfect, man.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much.
Thank you
coming
guys.
in, and
been great.
This was great. And for all the people at home that are watched or listened to this episode, please hit that subscribe button for us. That would help us out a ton. Comment what you thought below. Share this episode with a friend, and we will see you next time.